Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics. On a week, the House of Representatives made historic vote 154-0 to begin an investigation into the governor of the state of Missouri. We're joined by one of the leading members of the state Senate, a former House member, Senator Caleb Rowden from Boone County. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Scott. Good to be here.
Obviously, you're serving in historic times. It's a chamber you're very familiar with. It's a chamber until last year you served in.
Yeah.
The House made a pretty glaring statement, 154-0 to begin a committee to investigate the governor's scandals. They put one of the most respected members, I think, on both sides of the Capitol, Representative Jay Barnes, over it. The committee seemed to be balanced with folks that have been very supportive of the governor, but folks that care about the state of Missouri.
Yeah, it is historic. I mean, these are unprecedented times, and it is incumbent upon us as legislative leaders and as legislators to understand the gravity of the moment. And so, yeah, I agree. I'm happy that it was a unanimous vote. I think that was necessary. I think that was important to show that we are serious about this. And I think it was important that you put the caliber of individual that's on there. Obviously, you're right. Jay Barnes is respected. He's the smartest guy in most rooms in the Capitol. Yeah. Which may be a low bar sometimes, but you know, and I have a great deal of respect and confidence in Todd Richardson, and I think they want to get to the bottom of it. They want facts to be facts, and they want rumors to be rumors. And I think in where we are right now, I think that's really, really important.
I think it's important at a time where you have a guy leading the House and a guy leading this committee. They actually live what most Republicans claim during the campaign. They live that every day. I think that's an important time. Important character trait in this time specifically, but as they move forward, you came out. I think they waited, may have given more credibility when the scandal first broke. The speaker was quiet, yeah. wasn't supportive, but
sure.
did not take this step. They waited till Thursday. You came out and made a pretty direct statement, not that he should be impeached, but that because of everything going on, because of this, it's hard to serve. What brought you to that point?
Well, a couple of things. One, and I always try to, and I want to really highlight the fact that I always try to think about the non-political realities of these situations.
Sure.
There are families involved. There is wives and husbands and kids, and so any statement that I make, I want to make sure is underneath the light of that, because we're not. I don't want to be defined as a politician. I don't think Governor Greitens shouldn't be defined as a politician. We are. I want to be defined as a good father and a good husband and somebody who someone who people respect. And so when I make statements, I try to put everything under that light. The reality is, for me, one, these are really serious allegations. This is not an insignificant, time that we're in, either on the blackmail side of things, or now the donor list and some of the financial issues that are beginning to be brought out. These are not insignificant. And so, for the good of the state and for the good of the governor, I think investigations by the House and by now Attorney General Hawley, and continued investigation by the St. Louis prosecutor, those are necessary. Those are important steps to get us to the place that we understand, hey, is this real or is this not? And so we've got to get past the rhetoric of, well, George Soros is leading this and driving this and everything else. So now to have Jay Barnes and have Attorney General Hawley, people who I know and respect and trust, that's a really important thing. My resignation call was because I don't envision a scenario where the governor will be in a place where he can lead in the way that he needs to. And I think that's really important.
Let's talk about the investigation by Attorney General Hawley. When this came out last February, the Ethics Commission released their report. I think it was in the honeymoon of a governorship. I can't imagine any serious person believed that the conclusion they came to was true. It may have been the conclusion they could prove or the governor would agree to, but the story was ridiculous when it was reported. I think Attorney General Hawley's investigation may be, it'd be very hard to say he's doing the bidding of George Soros.
Right. Well, and look, this is, you have to do things because they're the right things to do. And I think that was, for me, that was the reason why, as a guy who never really had much political ambition, I never thought I'd be here anyway. I won elections I wasn't supposed to win. I've always kind of felt like I'm living on borrowed time. You do things because they're the right things to do. And I think, the path of political expedience for me, and maybe not releasing a statement, would have probably been the most expedient thing to do, I think, for Attorney General Hawley. Maybe just going about his business and saying, hey, I'm running a United States Senate race. I'm a little bit busy. But the right thing to do is to get to the bottom of this, and so that we can thoroughly and effectively and quickly move on, because we have to move on.
You mentioned something, though. I think that one thing is, and I've been a critic of Josh Hawley at times, you know, a lot of politicians I know would have taken a pass on this, investigating the governor of their own party. They would have come with some reason to say somebody else is doing it or fluffed it up. I think he deserves some credit for actually taking on his own party and doing the right thing in the middle of a U.S. Senate race where it's not easy.
Well, and if you think about both sides and their position around the motivations of Kim Gardner and, you know, all of the things around that, you really need someone, some entity, other individuals
Sure.
Becoming a part of the conversation. And so again, I have a great deal of confidence and respect in Representative Barnes, the other people on that committee, Attorney General Hawley. They're not trying, this isn't a witch hunt anymore. This isn't, for anybody who thought that it was, this isn't a witch hunt. These are individuals who care about the state, they care about the future of the state, and they care about the well-being of the people that they were elected to represent.
Let's talk about another thing where people did kind of come in and do some changes. That's University of Missouri.
Yeah.
They had their showcase today. I know it's a big cause of you in your district. I was a critic of them, but if you're a critic of the University of Missouri today, you're just a critic.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. It
Yeah.
was a fun event. You know, if you're not excited about the future of the university when you get around Moon Choi, President Choi, you need to plug yourself into a socket. You know, I mean, he is really excited. His energy is infectious, and he's doing things in a proactive manner. For the first time in the 6 years that I've been involved in any sort of partnership with the university at this level, they're thinking ahead. They're looking proactively, and they're not solely relying on kind of the crutch of, well, until the legislature gives us millions and millions and millions of more dollars, we're just kind of going to sit on our hands. They're not doing that. They're not sitting back. They're doing great things. Enrollment is back up. These dorms that were closed are open again. It's a great time.
There's two things. I think they hired Andy Blunt, which whether people at the university liked it or not, you need somebody that understands the legislature.
Yep.
And then your election, whether people like it or not, like you said, the reality is you're in the majority party in a tough district, well respected. I think those two things really help turn that around. And then you bring in a leader like Moon Choi. I think we may be moving past the, oh my gosh, Mizzou's turning it around, to talking about some of the momentum they're building.
Yeah, and now it does become, I talked to a group of administrators in the building this week, and we have the opportunity now, like you said, to move beyond kind of this turning of the Titanic moment to say, now we're looking ahead and let's be a leader, because it really is possible for University of Missouri to be a leader in a lot of really critical areas, research and otherwise. And so we have an opportunity now that we haven't had for at least a couple of decades to take a lead on something. I'm excited about that.
Let's talk about the state Senate. You're seeking the position of majority floor leader in the next Senate. The Senate has been a time of transition, but I tend to think that while there's been some issues with the way the Senate's moved, I think it's been a pretty good couple first months, very different than last year.
Well, it is. First of all, I don't know 100% for sure if I'm seeking that position, but we certainly have had a number of upperclassmen come to me and ask me if I'd be interested in the role. And I think, yeah, we're working in a much better and cohesive manner than we were at this time last year, which I think is great. We have to find a way to, I spoke on the Senate floor this week about, you know, the Senate is the cooling saucer, and I think it is the chamber that demands respect and civility and thought beyond just traditional rhetoric. And so if we get to a place where we're more concerned about political realities and less concerned about policy victories and compromise and consensus, then we've got a problem. And so for me, I want to be a part of making sure that the next decade is better than the last decade. And so if that is in a position of leadership, that's fantastic. If it's in another position, that's okay too. But the functionality of the Senate, especially in the current environment that we have with kind of a distracted governor, becomes all that much more important for the vitality of the state.
Well, it may even be a more important session next time. You have Ron Richard actually serve with people in the minority.
Yeah.
He has some idea that Republicans don't just win all the time. You know, Mike Kehoe, a statesman, big shoes to fill there.
Yeah.
You have a lot of big leaders leaving. It was a huge class in 2010. The new dynamic, it'll be interesting to see how maybe the first truly term limit Senate may be next January.
Yeah, and I think part of what I've been trying to do is, because you're right, that new class is going to be a big class. I mean, literally it's a third of the Senate and it's a third of our caucus. And so I've been going out and trying to meet with those candidates. We've got a lot of really great candidates out there. and just kind of saying, hey, look, let's imagine, or maybe even reimagine in some cases, what a functional Missouri Senate could look like, and do it under the understanding of what historical precedents have taught us, but then also what can we do moving forward to maybe modernize it and make sure that a 2018, 2019, 2020 Missouri Senate is functioning in a way that's in the best interest of the state of Missouri.
Before we let you go, is Kevin Corlew going to join you in the body?
I believe he will.
We're going to talk about that in a couple weeks when we go to Kansas City, but
I like it.
We look forward to discussing that race in this session as it unfolds, and we hope you'll come back and join us on This Week in Missouri Politics.
Thanks, Scott.
We'll be right back with our Opinion Maker panel. Representative Bruce Franks is back after this.
In 2008, Republic Services acquired the Bridgeton landfill in a merger. Since then, we've invested $200 million to clean up the site and to maintain environmental compliance. We do that while staffing the facility 24/7. That's because we support permanent solutions that are safe for our neighbors and clean up the environment. We're committed to doing what's right. That's what drives us every day. We're a part of the community, and we're here for the long haul. Republic Services. We'll handle it from here.
My name is Eric Philippi. I'm a veteran, a carpenter, and a father. When Eric Greitens said he was going to change politics as usual, folks like me didn't think the first thing he'd do as governor was take dead aim at our jobs and our families' livelihoods by working to repeal prevailing wage. Call Governor Greitens. Tell him to protect prevailing wage and to protect my family, not destroy it.
At Ameren, Missouri, we know what light can do. It draws people together and chases monsters away. And if you shine it in the right direction, it will light the path for the next generation, showing them what their tomorrow could look like, and spotlighting the possibilities that lay in front of them. Investing in our community by lighting the way forward. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back to This Week in Missouri Politics. We are joined by Representative Donna Behringer of St. Louis City. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me again.
Representative Bruce Franks, friend of the show. Welcome back, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Representative Mike Stevens, first time on. Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you very much. I took my hay wagon from the country up here to the city to spend some time with my good friend, Mr. Bruce Franks.
Well, it's always good to have, as a simple hillbilly, it's always good to have somebody in a hay wagon come to town. Representative Shamed Dogan, welcome back to the show, sir.
Glad to be here.
We were a pretty serious day. The investigation into the governor was arrested. We covered that on the last show this week. The House of Representatives comes 154-0 to form a committee led by Representative Jay Barnes to begin to investigate the matter. We were just talking before we turned the camera on about how serious that chamber was. This was not something taken lightly.
That's right. It's one of the most serious votes that I think any of us have taken in our time here, and really reflected the situation that we're in. And I'm really confident in that committee and its members, especially the leader, Jay Barnes. And I think we will start a process of us uncovering the truth of what's going on here and whether or not these allegations are serious enough to rise to the level of us having to take action.
Representative Bruce Franks, it was an interesting thing. Jay Barnes was probably the right pick amongst this body to lead that committee. He is somebody respected both sides of the aisle, both sides of the Capitol. I even heard senators talk about how, well, this is such a serious thing. You got to have it done right, and he seems like the guy to do it right.
No, I absolutely agree. Jay Barnes is one of the most fair folks that can look at things from both sides, and even if you look at the makeup of the actual committee, the folks you have on there. You have Gina Mitten, you have Tommy Pearson, you have Don Phillips. You know, you have folks who are on this committee who, you know, are respected on both sides and will give it a fair shake. So that's what it's about.
Representative, I mean, you've served with all these folks. I thought the committee, Kevin Austin, Sean Rhodes, people that have experience in the legal system. It seems like, to the extent there is something that needs to be addressed by the larger body, these are the right folks to identify that.
Well, I think the thing that we all are keenly aware of at this moment is that this is an historical moment in the, it is a pivotal moment in the history of our state. And because of that, it has to be taken very, very seriously. The process and the outcome will be indelibly inked in the pages of Missouri history, and everyone is quite aware of that. And we all have our personal perspectives and our personal feelings and things that have led up to this to give us our own personal tilt to the process. But we know that it is the most visible, consequential thing that we can do at this time, and it just has to be done in a manner that history will judge as being right and fair.
Representative Jeannie Lowry is the woman on that committee, very respected senior member. But as far as the full makeup, what did you think?
Well, there are 2 women, so I was glad to see that.
Women Republican, sure.
Yes, because you have Gina Mitten as well. So I am glad to see 2 women. But I want to go back to when Representative Barnes speaks on the floor. I normally always listen, but this time everyone listened.
Yes.
And the important part about that is that he is very concise, informational, and educational when he speaks about any of the legislation he presents to us. And he said something, he said, all of you should look up the case of Judy Moriarty, because he wants to make clear that we need to understand that this is not, we're going to impeach, this is an investigative process, this is a committee to decide, should we move forward? And he wants us to focus on that, not focus on impeachment.
Well, it's an interesting take. I mean, he is the type of person that if he does come out and exonerate the governor, I think fair-minded people will probably take that out of respect to him as, okay, move forward. But there was a thing that did come forward. This week, on Thursday of last week, the Attorney General, Josh Hawley, came out and said he's going to now take over looking into whether the governor used the fundraising list and the emails from his charity that he built up and kind of was his platform run for governor on, whether he used those for political purposes, which would be illegal. There's been said that this is some sort of George Soros boogeyman thing. This is the Attorney General, the Republican Attorney General of the state of Missouri, now stepping up and saying, I'm investigating this. Does it cast a different look on the situation?
Well, I suppose it does. I have to echo what's been said here about Representative Barnes, about his reputation as being knowledgeable and fair, like probably no one else in the entire chamber. I don't see. I think that anything that will be brought to the committee will probably be a reflection of charges that have been made by either prosecutors or the Attorney General. I'm not familiar enough with the details of that accusation, but I think as the composition of the committee has been made and the scope of their inquiry has been explained, I think those types of charges will probably be considered along with his behavior prior to, along with the behavior that has been called to question. Sure. Prior to that.
Representative, I mean, there's no real standard what you have to do there. You decide this matter, but I do think Josh Hawley stepping in, it makes some of the more bizarre statements look even more bizarre about who was really behind this. It looks like it's fair people trying to find facts.
That's right. The idea that this is just a partisan witch hunt is false. I was a part of a group of now 13 Republicans coming out and saying, look, we respect what you've done, Governor Greitens, but we just think for the sake of our state and for the sake of our party, you ought to resign. And we did that with heavy hearts, but as with all kinds of situations that we've seen in the past, you could talk to Jeff Smith, you could talk to Bill Clinton, it's never the underlying behavior that gets you in trouble, it's your response to it. It's if you lie to investigators, if you lie to anyone, if you lie to the public, if it turns out that there's other behaviors that you've engaged in, and here we are, we started off on one issue and we have 3 or 4 of them ongoing, 3 or 4 different investigations of the governor, not all by Democrats, and it's just a huge distraction. He can't say that this doesn't take away a lot of his time. It's taken away our time as legislators. Sure. So with that distraction going on and with that taking away from his ability to do his job, I think the best thing for him to do is just to step aside and let the legislature keep up the good work that we're doing.
Representative Ranks, there was his criminal defense attorney Ed Dowd, formerly a pretty high, well-respected Democrat, came out and pretty viciously attacked Kim Gardner, the first African-American woman elected to the Circuit Attorney's Office, with the worst work he'd ever seen in his 40-year career, something to that effect. Were you surprised to see what most folks thought was a leading Democrat make such a vicious attack?
So actually I was. Judge Dowd was somebody who was respected, you know, across the board. But to shape this into an attack on our prosecuting attorney, Kim Gardner, was uncalled for. It was tasteless. Basically, it was disgusting. And I think I've seen Kim Gardner recommend charges for folks who weren't law enforcement, who weren't elected officials, that were kind of heavy-handed, you know, in my opinion sometimes. I've seen her be fair across the board. And to think that this is some type of political move when this is the position we put her in to make these hard decisions, these right choices, and to attack her. Now let's just see if the governor and Dowd are going to attack Josh Hawley for investigating the non-for-profit as they attacked Kim Gardner. But the attack on Kim Gardner was uncalled for, and it's something that we're not going to stand for.
That is an interesting point. If Kim Gardner's investigating for political reasons because of some boogeyman, well, do you think they attack Josh Hawley? And do you think all these things are just a symbol that maybe the governor definitely deserves the most, you know, aggressive legal defense he can have, but do you think he might better serve the state to mount that legal defense out of public office?
I have, of course, coming into this venue, I thought about that question, and frankly, I really am going to not be as openly vocal. I think the governor's his service now is compromised, and the work of the state has been compromised. I would like to believe there is some honor left to be able to get past this. The governor will have to decide on his own if what the right choice is. I certainly have my own feelings about this. My real feelings largely reflect Representative Dogan's,
Sure.
But I still want to be sure, because this is so historic, that that all of us conduct ourselves in a way that when the story of this is finally written, we can look back and say that our positions and our behavior was right and proper.
Representative Barringer, you were part of the body that elected Kim Gardner. I wonder if you will hear the attacks on Attorney General Hawley.
I wonder as well. But what I also think about is that Josh Hawley, you know, is Attorney General, and he ran not being a career politician. So for him to now have a second investigation of the governor, I think it's his way of showing, hey, I am not a career politician.
Or his way of doing what's right.
Trying to do what's right. But if we're going to attack Kim Gardner, then we need to also attack Josh Hawley. I mean, we need to be equal.
Why would you think they wouldn't do that?
I don't know why they're not doing it, but it could be because they don't want to attack one of their own, because it's an R Republican to a Republican. But
do you believe it could be that an African-American woman's treated different than a white male?
I think anyone could be treated differently, not just based on one thing or another. But I think this has more to do with being a Democrat versus a Republican. That's why I look at it.
Let's talk about filing. Shamed Dogan, you're an important member of the juggernaut that is HRCC. It's probably the most impressive political organization in the state of Missouri. Track record of wins, one loss in Jefferson County. Had to be, it's one of those things that wouldn't matter most of the time, but because of your string of wins stands out. How was filing, and what does election night look like if it happens right now?
Well, I think it's an expectations game partly, right? The Democrats actually had really high expectations at the special election night, and they only won 1 out of 4 when they were talking about possibly winning 2 or 3 of those races. So with us, I think I'm going to set low expectations for us. I think if we can keep the majority, I'll be happy on election
I think
night.
you might keep the majority. Donna Berger, what do you think, though? I mean, they probably keep that majority, but how reduced is it?
I think you're going to see some changes. I'm excited for this next election. I really am.
The next election actually is June, maybe the biggest election in the foreseeable future. Clay County, Senator Sylvie's district, Tough County, Lauren Arthur up against Kevin Corlew. She just got the nomination. Why does Lauren Arthur win that seat?
First, before I say that, Kevin Corlew is a good guy.
Yep.
Some stuff we don't agree on, most stuff, but he's a good and fairly fair guy. Lauren is amazing. Lauren is a person that understands people in all walks of life. She comes up there, she fights for her constituents, and not only her constituents, others. And she's willing to listen to folks in their particular arguments and work across the aisles to get stuff done. Those are all important factors when we're talking about a Senate seat, somebody who can move the ball down the field for both sides.
Why does Kevin Corlew win this race?
Kevin is an exceptionally capable young man. I've gotten to know him. We've traveled a few venues together, and his office is across the hall from mine, and so we get to visit some. And the work that he's done in the House, he is one of those that when he stands to speak, that he speaks with a credible authority. And his legal background serves him very well. He's been the head of an exploratory commission, a highway commission to
very accomplished guy.
It was very accomplished. I certainly don't.
You think he wins?
Well, of course I think he wins.
Well, we got for us to win. We only have a minute left. Who won the week?
I would say Senator Rowden. Senator Rowden, along with myself, sponsored the Justice Reinvestment Act, great bill to help reduce our prison population, and also was the first senator after the indictment to come out and really lead the charge and say, we think, Governor, it's time to step aside.
Who won the week?
I think the House won the week because it stood together for a proper process in an extremely difficult and historically pivotal moment.
Who won the week?
Lauren Arthur, getting the Democratic nod, which was the right thing to do, to put the right person in place to be successful in that Senate seat.
Two good candidates. Who won the week?
Gail McCain-Beatty, because of the way she handled herself on the floor when the resolution was introduced by Representative Barnes.
Statesman-like. I'm going to say Jeff Mazer, friend of this show, won a St. Louis Regional Chamber Award. We'll congratulate him. We hope you'll join us next week on This Week in Missouri Politics. This Week in Missouri Politics, brought to you by Spire and Sterling Bank.
Melanie's a good kid. I call her a kid. She's not a kid, but she's a kid to me. She is kind and complicated.
She's kind of a little quirky, but she has the greatest personality. She's always up to do things, wants to do fun stuff. So Melanie has Down syndrome. She has some definitely health issues. She has a speech impediment that makes it difficult for her to communicate. So a lot of things she has to maybe show you, or she has a hard time getting words out.
Yeah, where was this one taken? Is that your aunt's house?
She gets up and then she gets herself dressed. Puts her dirty clothes in the hamper. She's very self-sufficient that way. She comes into the kitchen and staff provide her medication for her and she takes it. And then staff prepares breakfast for her. We have her wipe off the table. She might need a prompt to do that, but she does that on her own. 3 days a week she goes to program for Easter seals, and she does a lot of activities throughout the day with that.
She is thriving with independence, being in this house, in this program. She's very happy to be here. This is her home. It's an amazing journey that has happened to her.
She says she'll visit her family, but she wants to come home. So she feels like this is her home, and there's nothing you can make better than for her to be like, this is my home. We're working on different things all the time, so it's a continuous work in progress. We're looking at having her learn her address and phone number. That's been difficult for her, just to memorize it. But we do repetition every day.
You want to go look for some DVDs?
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know where she'd be if there wasn't for Easter Seals. She would be probably having a less fulfilling life.
I'm very grateful to Easter Seals for the opportunity that she's been given. I've seen huge changes in her since she's been here to be on her own. And this is the best way that she can be on her own.
Where's your home? Here? Yeah. This is your home.
And I love this job. There's not a day that I don't want to not come here. And I know I'm making a difference. You can see that Melanie's happy, and that's probably our biggest goal, is we want our individuals to have rights and freedoms, and you can tell that she's very happy with that. She gets to live her life on her terms, and she's happy doing it.
Who's in this picture with you?
Daddy. She lost her dad about 4 years ago, and they were very tight. They were very close, and I'm sure he's smiling down right now.
We help people with disabilities be as independent as possible. We help them live out their life as full members of our community. People with disabilities want to do the same things you and I do. They want to work, they want to be valued, they want to have friends, and we help them achieve those goals.
We have to set priorities as a society, as a state, of what's important to us. And I think supporting individuals with disabilities is a really important thing for us to do. It's honoring the dignity of every human being and what their capabilities are and what their potential is, and allowing them to pursue whatever that is.
Many people with developmental disabilities need lifetime care. So we have a choice as a community. We can put them in institutions and nursing homes, which is expensive and inhumane, or we can help them live in the community and be as independent as possible. We can teach them the skills that maximizes their ability, whatever that is. That's good not only for the individual with a disability and their family, but it's good for the entire community.
That happiness that comes, that fulfillment, that dignity that people are allowed to have when we embrace the opportunities that are out there for people with disabilities is something that ripples across society. And so it obviously has an impact for that individual, but for their neighbor to see that individual working and having those interactions, and then that spreading across our state is an important thing. I think it should color how we view the world and what our priorities are.
The hope and opportunity that Easter Seals offers to people with disabilities would not be possible without the support of our community. Our donors, volunteers, neighborhoods that welcome people with disabilities, and our champions in Jefferson City make all of this possible.